Good morning, campers. Welcome to Radio Camp Apple, a Percy Jackson Reeling podcast. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm B.
And this week we read chapter 22 of The Last Olympian. I am dumped. And all I gotta say about this, B, is finally! Oh, God!
Finally. All of the shippers rejoice. This is an intentionally misleading chapter title, and I'm mad. I should have expected it. We've talked about these chapter titles many a time, and I wish they were consistent in the way that sometimes they're very literal and other times they're
very vague.
Like a vague metaphor that's sort of just a joke, and I never know which one's which. And in this case, this really functioned as a red herring and being like, wait a second, he was already dumped by Rachel. Is he also going to get dumped by Annabeth? But they're not even together, and it sent me down this whole spiral. And all this time, frickin' Rick was talking about them getting dumped into the lake. So that was great.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. I like that there's that twist because it's not like, oh, I get a girlfriend or I get a super surprise.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I thought it was a foregone conclusion that they end up together. And
I mean, that's kind of at the end of the second book. It's okay, something's happening here.
It's pretty obvious that they're into each other. It's very well established that they have just communication issues and weird other issues with,
and they finally get past it too, which is great
in their friendship/relationship. But I kind of knew they had to eventually be a thing.
Well, they had to, because that's the problem, though, is you have that argument of will they, won't they? And if you do it too early, people will get bored of it. If you do it right at the end, that's almost the perfect method to it. Well, yeah, no, there's a lot of I can't remember what show it is. It might have been Dallas or something where they have a go. No, it's Moonlighting with Bruce Willis where they did the would they, won't they, but when they got together, the show started to decline and then it got canceled. And then Bruce Willis did a bunch of action movies.
Yeah, that's an example of a lot of sitcoms, I think, that happens. But in general, I feel this whole will they, won't they thing wasn't out of nowhere. I don't think that there was no reason why they didn't get together sooner. There were obstacles. They were focused on prophecies. Percy was interested in Rachel and to some extent kind of still is. He understands that they have broken up, but
Percy Jackson did get rid of the competition with Luke, and then he saved the world, so I'm pretty sure he's
right, exactly. And then Luke too.
If that doesn't happen, he's in super friend zone at that point. It's the friend zone in Tartarus.
I don't think that they would have been able to move forward in a healthy way if, one, Luke was still around, and not just still around, but still in the mind of Annabeth, though obviously when she says goodbye to him, basically.
That's pretty much finality at that point.
Yeah, she says that she wasn't even interested in him in that way.
I have no problem with that type of stuff. For me, what I like about, at least with this relationship, is that in a lot of YA relationships, they're so forced in the way of they have these two polar opposites, and then just by the end, it's oh, now we're together. Here, it's a relationship. Yes, we complained about it, but I think when it comes down to it, what I like about it is it's done so subtly that once it actually happens, it feels very natural compared to a lot of other YA books in that same vein.
Well, it's definitely the friends to dating trope that they're doing, and it works well. I don't feel it's, there's this perfunctory thing that sometimes happens in adventure stories where it's you're the nearest girl and this is a boy.
I must
and
love you. You must love me.
You must love each other. That happens in action movies. I mean, it's kind of a thing that happens.
No, that happens all the time to the point of where I'm just really confused. I think
proximity. Oh, well, I guess you're here and you happen to be this gender, so now you're a couple. That doesn't make any sense. So I did appreciate that there was a lot of lead up to this.
See, it's a weird rocky road when it comes down to there's a really fine line, especially within YA about these relationships. I think how Rick does it's very, very subtle in the sense of okay, this is how it's gonna occur, and all these steps. Okay, so there's not going to be a shadow of the doubt. There isn't gonna be this love triangle anymore. Where at the beginning of this book there was a love triangle. By the end of this book, everyone that needs to be in the relationship is in their respected relationship, and it's a hard thing that weird fine line because sometimes you get this weird type of thing where it becomes a light romance novel, but here I like that it's kind of this is the final kind of heroic beat for both Percy and Annabeth. This is pretty much finality. We have one more chapter left, but I feel if it's going to be something, it's going to be something over the top. I feel this is Percy Jackson finally getting his real reward rather than I don't know. Like he's defeated the villain, but he's overcome his own not confidence, but like he's come off across this hurdle where they finally realize, yeah, we like each other, so let's just hold hands and kiss at the bottom of the lake.
This is a long time coming. Percy and Annabeth getting together. I'm not surprised it happens. I'm happy the way it happens. It's kind of like a very nice mix of romantic but kind of goofy, and then there's like this sort of sweet moment with the camp too that's like they're kind of embarrassed, but it's like a return to normalcy kind of moment that made me really happy. Obviously maybe things won't go totally back to normal, but
See, this is where I'm basing it off of like old like 1990s like camp movies. Like this is something that would become right out of it, where they kiss and the entire camp is just spying on them because they just know what's about to happen. Like that's just something that is gonna happen. Like,
I mean, the
fine.
implications of that is a little bit creepy, but I understand it was like Clarice.
It's supposed to
being
be a
her
cute
typical
moment.
self.
It's supposed
Yeah,
to
no,
be
I
a
really
cute
liked it a
moment.
lot. That made me feel like we were right back into like the culture of the camp, and it felt very like communal and sort of sweet and well-meaning, but sort of teasing.
I also think this is kind of like this is like when they kiss and all the camp is together. This is the first time we have the sense of like a return to normalcy. Like we've gone
Right,
to pretty much
exactly.
you having like
That's
the
what I was
kid's
saying.
funeral to now this. Like this is the cheery moment where even the Stoll brothers are like, yeah, go into the lake, and they're all waiting for them to pop up, but they forget that Percy's a son of Poseidon, so they're just gonna stay underneath the lake and have their makeout session.
Right, so we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because there's something that happens before they're able to get together, which is that Percy rushes back to camp because Rachel has gone haywire and stolen his Pegasus, so that way she can do what I predicted. I actually got this one right, you guys. I can't believe it. I paid attention enough to the plot. So yeah, she becomes the Oracle. That has been her plan all along.
Yeah, and for me, like the first time that I read this book series, I didn't know what was happening. Like, oh, I guess that makes sense in a weird fate sort of way. Like we've had Rachel since literally the third book. She has 3 names, meaning that Rick Riordan thought she was a very important character. Because if you're going to name a character Rachel Elizabeth Dare, you've given the effort of adding an extra name to that, and then also having the weird thing where it's red. See, for me, this is actually a really interesting, as a kid, looking at this, it's a really good twist because you don't know what's happening. And also, it goes back to the sense of like history repeats itself, stories repeat themselves, and how even fitting it within the parameters, because when it comes to Hades' curse, it's like the only reason why there's no oracle is because the children of Hades don't have a place at the table. Well, Percy Jackson has fixed that, so of course the curse is lifted. And you kind of need a sense of like returning back to the torch, or putting the sword back into the stone, or setting everything so now history can correct itself. That is a story element. I guess an example of this would probably be even like I guess in like The Hobbit, that's too, where Bilbo comes back and he's come back the exact day that they're trying to auction all of his stuff in his house because they think
Awkward.
he's been dead. But he has like a chest full of gold. Like there's stuff like that. And like for me, I like Rachel's twist. I like that she's taking her own action. Like what I love, that's what I love about her. Like she's making this choice. She hasn't been forced to do it. And Rachel's such a good character that's like you root for her.
There's an appropriate amount of tension here. Like we know what happened to Luke's mom. She did the very same thing, and because the curse hadn't been lifted, that is what resulted in her having those sort of fitful visions. I mean, that basically ruined her life, and Percy still cares about Rachel as a friend and is horrified at the idea that she's going to be cursed with this, and I think it really speaks to, like, Rachel's growth and understanding of the world, that she's like, no, I think I'm doing the right thing. I know that this curse is lifted because my visions have told me so. And then he goes to Chiron and Chiron says, oh, I invited her here. I think she's doing the right thing. So Percy just sort of flailing, being like, wait a second, what? And I guess she just didn't have the time to explain why.
No, this is bad. I was literally in a woman's house where she was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that were moldy. Please don't do this.
Yeah, no, he's really freaking out. Like, that scene is really interesting because there's multiple moments where Percy is told he should not intervene. They say, oh, don't go over here. This is very, delicate process. Don't go into the big house. Don't come closer to her. And every time he's stopped, whether it's like Chiron telling him not to, or it's Apollo standing over, he keeps forging ahead because he really cares about Rachel and is like, obviously he's been having these horrifying dreams and visions of what happened to May, and like saw her in person and like witnessed the implications of what that curse did to her. And it's very sweet, but it's also like, Percy, get out of the way. Like, trust Rachel. She's making the right choice. She knows that this is going to be okay.
From Percy's perspective, I understand this because this is like, don't go into the room filled with deadly radiation because you know what's going to happen. But also, it's this weird thing. It's like blind faith. Like, I guess actually, it's Rachel being hopeful that makes Percy Jackson unnerved because she knows she's hoping that what she's about to do is correct, and we follow back with like Pandora's jar. This is this is the linchpin that's making it that she doesn't have the same fate as May. Whereas Percy Jackson has seen the fate of May. Like, he's literally gone to her house. She has moldy sandwiches.
I think to some extent he has like this weird, almost secondhand trauma about all this because he's seen like really the full timeline of what happened to her, how she started out, how she was so vibrant and like aware of her surroundings and knew what she was doing and really thought that, oh, this is going to work out. And then Rachel is the same way. And Percy just in his heart of hearts is like, this is the same thing happening. He keeps, I think the line is something like her words reminded him so much of May, and that like panicked him. He's like, that's exactly how she sounded. She was so sure also.
Well, I also think that Percy Jackson's fatal flaw is having like not even blind faith in friends, but caring about his friends so much that he'll put his safety above theirs, but this is the exact opposite.
Right. I mean, that's what Athena criticized him for a couple chapters ago. She does say that he ends up saving his friends too, but yeah, he's blindly loyal and he'll kind of act out in maybe an irresponsible way. This whole chapter, like the first half of the chapter when Rachel is making this decision, like I said, Percy is forging his way through. He's elbowing his way past all of the people telling him that he shouldn't intervene. And then Rachel herself is turning to him and saying, it's okay, I'm fine, I'm making the right decision. And he like wants to trust her, but he's just so protective of the people that he loves.
See, and that's like what makes like an interesting foil, isn't it? Like, you have a character that like loves all of his friends. Like, he'll do anything for them. Like, the funny thing is that no one can stop him because he still has the mark of Achilles on him. So like, nothing can stop him except the only thing that stops him is Rachel. Rachel's the only one that puts him in his place because Apollo doesn't stop him. Chiron doesn't stop him. The whole camp probably couldn't stop him even if they held him down. And I like that about Percy.
She does succeed. Rachel was right about the curse being
love the
lifted.
effect that they talk about here. It's like the whole mummy turns to dust. Almost like, for me, I'm not much in like symbology, but like it crumbles to dust, much as like the dust and like the mist and how that works.
She just dissolves away basically, and she's free. Like it's a good thing. She doesn't want to be the Oracle anymore. It's been a curse for her.
She's happy that she doesn't have to be the Oracle anymore because she's now dead and she's happy. Which she doesn't have to live like a cursed half-life. Now it goes to Rachel. And Rachel's going to be an interesting type of Oracle because we're so used to like people not. Like, we have the mummy, you have that one fixed character.
Right, she's so like inhuman the way that she's treated, and I think it's because she's been cursed and she's like, let's be honest, that's a little bit messed up that like, yes, she's cursed to be the Oracle forever, but like, did Chiron really think, oh, this is smart, let's just leave her in the attic? Like, she's still a person. Do you know what I mean? I feel like in some ways he should have at least been like, okay, let's give you some dignity and like let you stay in like a room.
So when it comes to Percy Jackson, when it comes to the first book to the last book, it's almost like a deconstruction of the first book in the sense of all the weird, wacky things that we love. Well, here's them like in a different point of view. Because in the first book, it's like, oh, we have the Oracle. There's just this weird mummy that wears like a tie-dye shirt.
Right, and then you think,
person.
Oh, right, the mummy is a person this whole time. Like, of course she is, but like, I guess it's easy to like dehumanize a character like that, and then you remember like, oh, she has this whole backstory. She was cursed. She was a person with like agency and a belief system and a life that she wanted to live, and that's so horrible and tragic that she had to like live in an attic for like centuries,
probably like 40-50 years, because she died.
That's true. Well, because she was
in the 40s.
Yeah.
So
it's only been in the 40s, right? So she hasn't been the Oracle for that long of a time, but yeah, she wasn't supposed to be immortal.
No, because that's kind of the fate about it, like being the Oracles. It's a thing that gets passed down with generation to generation. So a lot like the Avatar, in the sense of when you die, the Avatar gets reincarnated to another, the next cycle of benders. But here, what I think is so interesting is that we're so used to the idea of the Oracle being the skeleton that doesn't talk back. And now it's in Rachel, who has, like, can't talk back.
Who's like a person. Yeah, and then also she's not cursed, so it's not like she's like withering away in some attic. Like she's gonna go to this boarding school for her dad while she's like being fielded with like pelted with visions from like everywhere, basically. She's like immediately gets the next big prophecy like the second she becomes the Oracle.
B, what you're telling me is this is just the prequel to That's So Raven. I get it now.
Yeah, it basically is, right? Because she's just getting these like horrible kind of heavy visions while she's trying to be a teenager. And in some ways that's pretty relatable to Percy too, the two of them just like trying to act like normal kids in the midst of it all.
It's funny because we look at Rachel. Rachel is, when you think of Rachel, what is the first thing that comes to your mind besides the Oracle now?
I mean, well, she's independent.
Yeah, she's very independent, but we've also seen her that like she's always been different from all the other people. Like she's been able to see the mist and stuff. And now, much like Percy in the first book, she's now adopted into this new family of the demigods. Like, she is the oracle. They're what people look up to now. And I find that to be interesting that even people that aren't demigods...
Right, now she's become an actual part of
she's become like a fix
of like mythology.
Well, she's also become part of Percy's world in that sense of, you know, Percy opened up the world to her, and now she's able to stay in this world as long as she wants.
It's similar to Percy. She has to like stride this line of like she wants to be this normal person, but she also has a major responsibility.
She now has a part-time job.
Uphold. Yeah, a horrible.
I mean, some people go to like, you know,
fitful dreams of the future.
Some people work at Target, some people work at Wetzel's Pretzels. Rachel has to become the Oracle and give people death visions.
Yeah, so do you want me to read the new prophecy?
We will read it together because it's the duty of both of us to do that thing. So this is the next big prophecy, B. Ooh, man.
When she spoke, her voice sounded tripled like three Rachels were talking at once. 7 half-bloods shall answer the call.
To storm or fire, the world must fall.
An oath to keep with a final breath.
And foes bear arms to the doors of death.
At the last word, Rachel collapsed. Nico and I caught her and helped her to the porch. Her skin was feverish. So she doesn't even remember what she just said, which is kind of what I think it's Apollo who explains that.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what the prophecy is. It's like
going through her as a vessel. She's not actually understanding it any more than anybody else.
No, she's kind of like a walkie-talkie where you can pick up weird phantom signals.
Basically, yeah, she's a walkie-talkie of fate. So she doesn't really even know what she said or understand it at all, even more than anybody else.
She's just a vessel.
Right.
And what do you think that prophecy could possibly mean? Do you think it's going to come back any way, shape, or form?
Oof. I mean, surely that has to maybe do with one of the sequels.
Because even Apollo's like, well, the good thing about big prophecies is the last one was 70 years. This one won't have to be in the lifetime.
Right. And we also don't know, like, what's going to happen, like, how long this is going to take. Because, as Apollo points out, he's like, oh, the prophecy that had to do with you took, like, 7 years. So there's, like, a long game to play with these kinds of prophecies. It's not like it's all going to happen all at once.
Tomorrow, or a couple of years from now, like, how awkward would that be if it was just like, well, it's the next day. Well, time to go on the new prophecy. Oof, that would be weird and awkward. I don't know. It's interesting because we look at prophecies and we all know how prophecies are very weird because you have like these big prophecies and you don't know them until it's too late or it's the right moment.
Right. And yeah, Apollo says that it might not even happen in his lifetime. So like we really don't know. It's very hard to have the context to even guess who those 7 half-bloods could be, because it's like, are they alive now even? Do we know them? There's a lot of questions.
I would not know, and I will not tell you.
Pretty cool, though. I think that Rachel is like remains one of my favorite characters and only gets more interesting as the book progresses. Her, like, I just, like, off the bat, she's so fascinating and cool, but she really, like, grows even more to be this, like, complicated character who, like, determines her own destiny, which makes sense because she's always been a pretty
very independent person,
very
with
strident
headstrong
character.
Headstrong is the word I would use, or I guess fiery is a good example of that with her fiery hair.
Yeah, I mean that's another one. She's just, you know, she knows what she wants and she gets what she wants. She determines her own fate in that way.
Well, I mean, yes, because she literally is a billionaire, so she can just throw money at the problem too.
In some ways, yeah, but I think she differs from her dad in that she wants to, I don't know, rebel against him determining her fate, though in some ways she has to because he
Well, how ironic it is now that like she wants to turn away against her fate, but now she's a conduit of all fate.
Yeah, that is true. That's very fascinating. I was going to say it's kind of ironic that she has determined this for herself, but at the same time, because she made that deal with her dad, she has to go to that boarding school. So it's like this weird double life where she's doing exactly what her dad wants, but she also is doing something that's really important to her. And like, he doesn't even really understand it.
Well, and that makes it for an interesting story element because that's the superhero thing. It's a secret identity. You have Peter Parker and then you have Spider-Man. Like they have to live like this two double lives. And that's where you find some of the most interesting drama is what if they find out like, how are they going to explain? Oh, so now I get to go to this camp with all these people during the summertime and the wintertime?
I mean, like I said, it's like Percy, you know, that's like him trying to go to school and he keeps freaking blowing up school after school because he's a freaking demigod.
Oh no, he's going to blow up the next school that he goes to? Well, maybe he might not be blowing up more schools. Maybe he got rid of the problem. Maybe he got rid of the god that blows up schools.
Right. I mean, also, he's not quite as actively pursued as he was when that prophecy was a brewing, but then again, he's still a demigod, you know? Demigods don't live long. Monsters are always reforming and reappearing to fight you, even if they're not, you know, like a reformed titan who is there to destroy the world.
I can't wait for when Percy Jackson goes to community college.
Yeah, he's gonna destroy the lecture hall.
Possibly. Who knows? And kind of like moving on a little bit about this is kind of, we all forgot the most important part of this chapter B, and that is it's Percy Jackson's birthday today. He turned 16.
It is. I forgot it was his birthday.
I forgot about it.
I forgot it was his birthday. It's like, oh, right, you know.
There was like a little kind of inconvenience to know the whole world was pretty much about to be destroyed. I think forgetting one's birthday is kind of appropriate in the situation.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the scene in Unfortunate Events where Klaus remembers it's his birthday and he's like in prison. And it's very sad because it's like they have to like live this sort of bizarre life that most children aren't expected to, and they're so distracted by like mortal danger that they forget that their birthdays are happening. And it's like a similar thing, though. It's very funny that for Percy, it's like his birthday was actually a really integral part of the prophecy. Like, oh right, when he turned 16, he's like, oh well, the prophecy happened just on time, but I was like so distracted about the prophecy part I forgot about the birthday part.
When I'm looking at this also from like the kid's perspective of like, we as adults now are just like, oh no, another birthday. But to a kid, oh my God, I get to turn 12, 13. 13's a big number. Man, I'm an adult now. Like, you actually count those days off. So when you miss your birthday, that's so devastating.
Most birthdays are big numbers for demigods, I think, too. So it's every year should be celebrated.
They're counting their blessings. Ooh, I'm 18 now. That's like 70 in demigod years. Do you go by dog years now?
So that was kind of sweet. I really like that Annabeth, and with the help of Tyson, makes him a little cupcake with, of course, blue frosting.
This is where I'm getting my Harry Potter vibes of when Hagrid gave Percy his...
Yeah,
when
Hagrid gave Percy... Wait,
yeah.
What?
Oh, yes. Oh, shit. Oh, Percy, I went to the wrong house. I'm so sorry. I gotta go find Harry.
You're a wizard. Oh, different boy with messy hair. I gotta go.
Sorry. Yeah, so when Hagrid gave Harry his cake on his 11th birthday... Car crash? I know car crash killed Lily and James Potter. I don't even know what a car is.
I really like that not only does Annabeth remember his birthday and bring him a little treat, but that Tyson helped in his own way. And then Percy says, oh yeah, I could tell he helped because it looks like a brick with blue mortar on it.
Oh, we also forgot the most important cameo in this chapter, babe. Rainbow makes an appearance.
Right, that's true.
I love how Rainbow's just like, knee. And Percy's like, don't worry, girl, I'll give you apples.
Well, yeah, that's how they get out of the city, because the traffic is a nightmare, as you would expect, and all of the Pegasi are gone, so...
Yeah, because they all got horse-snapped by Rachel.
Yeah, he has to summon a hippocampi through the, or I guess
through his magical spooky water powers.
Yeah, through his magical water powers, they have to sludge through all of the gross river water and take him to Camp Half-Blood. So briefly, he talks to Rainbow and says, "Oh yeah, well Tyson's not here, but he's like a big shot general now." And then they're very proud of him, which is sweet.
Well, all the hippocampi are really proud of Tyson. But what I love about the scene, going forward about that is, I love that it's Annabeth that kind of remembers that it's Percy's birthday. And this is kind of like pretty much this is the moment. This is literally the moment in 16 Candles where Molly Ringwald sitting on.
Oh, it very much is that moment.
It's pretty much that's what I was thinking about. Did you make a wish? It already came true.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, very sweet. I really liked that moment a lot because it was so like personal and like it was so human too, which I think I the very human moments between the demigods always kind of like hit in a certain place because they're so deprived of that kind of normalcy. They're deprived of like normal birthdays and experiencing their life in a normal way. So whenever, a character is just like, oh, like let's just be normal for a second and like eat a cupcake and like look at the water and just sit for a second. And I found that very sweet.
Yeah, and I love those sweet, tender moments. Again, this is Rick Riordan does an exceptional job with okay, I'm about to say, when it comes to Rick Riordan's relationships, he is like a master of this in the sense of like it's so natural, like it's coming, but it also doesn't seem forced in the way of like, okay, they're gonna kiss right now. Like the way he's even written the book is pretty much, the cheesy '80s music starts playing like a soft like love ballad, and pretty much that's what pretty much happens where Annabeth makes the first move because Percy's like, I wanted to tell you how much that I missed you and in the River Styx I thought about you. You were my main thing,
and he's like a babbling idiot. I thought it was very, very funny and very in character where he's just like trying to be romantic and be like, you're the person who tethered me to reality. But Annabeth just kind of isn't letting him be that sappy and is like, oh, really? And then who did you have anyone in mind? And is kind of teasing him. And that's like always been their dynamic in a way, like he says something to the effect of like, oh, you'd kick my butt. And she's like, of course I'd kick your butt. And there's still that like sort of, good-natured rivalry, like teasing each other thing. And I really like that, that's they don't have that fall by the wayside just because now they're admitting their romantic feelings. They still have this sort of like playful banter.
It's also kind of funny that you look at it like Percy Jackson has a hard time like doing this, but he's literally helped defeat a god and he's fought this whole entire war. But the one hang up that he has is telling the girl that he likes her.
Yeah, the irony of how much he's able to like face these like monumental foes of like these ancient beings stirred from existence, and he's like, oh, I need to tell a girl I like her. Like it's a very funny contrast.
That's what I like about it. It's situational comedy at its finest here. This is where you have, oh no, it's I defeated Kronos and I killed the boy that she liked, but I can't tell her now how much I love her.
Yeah, it's a very sweet scene. I'm really happy that they resolved that. And so, like we mentioned, the name of the chapter title is I Got Dumped, not because he gets dumped by Rachel again, because that already happened, and not because he gets dumped by Annabeth, but because waiting in the wings is Clarice and a bunch of campers who lift the two of them and throw them into the lake, which I thought was like a great moment.
Like a 90s movie, like a sports movie where they all like freeze frame.
Yeah, it was like the ending of a camp movie for sure. It was very silly and very, again, human. They're just kids. They're goofing around, and I really liked that a lot. It wasn't some really intense, scary thing. It was just, like a fun prank that any kid would play.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those where we had like the sad moment. Again, we jump around, even though this is a very short chapter. It's like we started this chapter off with a funeral pretty much, and you had like they burned Selena's body, they burned Ethan's body.
Right, they start the chapter very eerily, so they have a bunch of funerals and like everyone just sort of like gets back to normalcy, sort of.
One of my favorite scenes from this is they talk about how like no one mentioned the word spy about Selena, that secret died with her ashes.
Right, Selena, and then not only was she not mentioned to be a spy, but both Ares and sorry, what is her cabin again?
Aphrodite.
But yeah, both Aphrodite and Ares cabins claim her as the hero, so they like burn her shroud together. So it's like this solidarity between one, like really two cabins that are often bickering with each other, and especially Ares, they're all kind of hard headed, and they just have this like moment of unity to send her off and have tribute to her. And I thought that was like very sincere.
Well, the way I look at it is a lot like how, like in Nordic mythology, when you have like a great warrior die, it's supposed to be like a matter of respect. Like that's where you get the idea of them sending them out on the boat and burning them, is because they have done their duty and now they're claimed back to the earth. And this is where you're supposed to, you feel prideful. And if you did a heroic action, a Valkyrie picks you up and you go to the gates of Valhalla, where you just wait until Ragnarok. And I love that.
Yeah, and it's not too dissimilar of an afterlife kind of structure here, for sure, where it's like, all right, you really were the hero. We're not going to kind of besmirch your name in your last moments and say anything about you being a spy. And then it even says like, oh, well, that sort of secret dies with her and burns away. I think with, what did they say? The smell of fancy perfume or something as they're burning it.
You know, it's a smell of like fancy perfume wafts over the ashes because this is a daughter of Aphrodite being claimed. It
Right,
reminds
she's so
me of,
concerned with her like vanity in a way. I thought that was very sweet.
it's funny because the way I look at this is the exact way I look at like Star Wars and how all the Jedi, for the most part, they have like funeral pyres, like Qui-Gon Jinn, and even Darth Vader gets burnt up at the end. Even Anakin gets burnt up before he becomes Darth Vader. But then there's some people that are like one with the Force, and they just become a pile of clothes.
They
And there's
just
no
disappear.
like, they just disappear. Yeah, they just become one with the Force, and they become naked. I don't know what happens to their old body, but that's what happens. And then the Sith, they all like look like monster mashes and get decapitated or get like bisected. And I guess in the case of like Kylo Ren, he turns into a pile of clothes, but he doesn't show up at the end. But then you have like Force Ghosts. Like I'm imagining that with like the ending is a lot like Return of the Jedi.
You're really getting into the afterlife of Star Wars.
I can get into the afterlife of Star Wars.
Of course you can. Yeah, but this is I thought it was interesting to kind of have this send off, and even Percy says it's like it's still an eerie thing that they have to like reconcile, like, okay, well, here are the campers that are gone now, and now we're back at camp, and there's something eerie about it that because the war, I guess, that they fought was all in Manhattan, it was all in the city, and so they return back to camp and it's pristine, it's untouched, it's just the people have been changed, but the actual camp itself is the same. And I thought that was really interesting, like, oh, he has to like reconcile this like pristine, almost bucolic scene with, you know, what they've all gone through. It might look the same, but the people aren't the same. Some of the people aren't even around anymore.
I also look at this as like a very like melancholy scene where you have this, where you have like the people die, but it also ends on a hopeful note. Again, the theme of this whole book is pretty much hope, is because through the people's sacrifices, like Ethan and even Selena, demigods are now going to thrive in a much different way than before they all died. Like they made the great sacrifice. Thus, demigods are going to be better at this. Is the great leap forward in the sense, and I like that when you have like when you have a character that dies in a book, their death needs to carry some weight to it, or at least needs to move the story forward.
Right. I mean, even Ethan Nakamura, like Percy says, oh, he didn't die in vain because the minor gods are recognized now, you know? So there's this, or even when they have dinner, right? There's this moment where Juniper is excited to see Grover, but for the most part, it's like uneventful. But then Percy's looking around, and he looks at Nico like sitting at the table with Chiron, and no one is questioning him or anything. And it's like this, some things are the same, and then some things are different. There's like been a paradigm shift because of this war. It hasn't been in vain. That they didn't just, I don't know, well, they didn't really kill Kronos, but you know what I mean? They didn't just destroy Kronos, but they destroyed a lot of the structure that led to him coming back to begin with.
Another good example of this is like, this could sound really batty, but even like Bianca's sacrifice basically was the first domino in that step of, because of her death, Nico became the person that he is and was able to convince Hades to help him. So there's a lot of like that's the weird thing about Percy Jackson. Every person that's died, it advances the story in like a correct way, than rather than like, oh, they die, but nothing happens to it. Like, the only other author that I can think of that does this really well is actually George R. R. Martin. Like, he'll kill a character off, and it's like, well, it's kind of mad that that plot point doesn't progress, but the reason why it's like that is, well, it's realistic. And I think here it's realistic, too.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. I think that there are just the right amount of, like, main characters who die, and they die in ways that, like, really enhance the story. Like, Selena's death really, develops the characters of Clarice, develops the character of Percy to some extent. Like, there's a lot of complicated lessons learned through the deaths of these main characters.
Like, even if we joke about, like, how Ethan died, like, because of his death, everyone gets to thrive. Like, his death wasn't in vain, same as how you have, like, all the other people that have died. And, again, it starts off on, like, a very melancholy note, but by the end of this, like, Percy Jackson and Annabeth are pretty much underwater. This is quintessentially like they're in space right now and no one's going to bother them but the fishes.
Right. I like how they're expecting them to resurface and they're like, no, we're at the bottom of the lake because he's like, the child of Poseidon finally making use of that for his own needs.
What I like about that is that none of them are going to be bothered in that sense. Like, this is Percy Jackson and Annabeth, and right now, they're the only people that matter. Right now, the world is revolving around them at this very moment rather than the whole camp revolving around them, which I thought is cute.
Yeah, I really liked afterward I had the last laugh. I made an air bubble at the bottom of the lake. Our friends kept waiting for us to come up, but hey, when you're the son of Poseidon, you don't have to hurry.
And then Percy Jackson forgot he doesn't have his powers right now. Blub, 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 blub. Bubble stop.
Very cute. I thought that was a very cute scene. This is I don't know, there's some bittersweet elements to this chapter for sure, but overall I found it like pretty wholesome. It was kind of uplifting after all of the doom and gloom of some of the other things we've experienced in this book.
When it comes to books about war, comes to any media about war, there's always going to be that doom and gloom, especially at the end of the war or something, because you have to have like that reconciliation of like, I made it, but all these people didn't make it.
Right, all these people were lost, exactly.
Yeah. Maybe because I've been watching a lot of like Ken Burns' Civil War and they talk about that so much.
Right, it's not unlike that at all, and it's not surprising that there would be like a reminiscence of the Civil War because Rick Riordan is a history buff. Remember, he references the Civil War. This is a war that was civil. It was between, different factions of half-bloods. Like, it's not, lost on me that was, like, metaphorically very similar.
Yeah, but now they're probably going to sing Glory, Glory, Hallelujah.
Have you ever actually read the lyrics of Glory, Glory, Hallelujah? Because it is, like, an intense freaking song, honestly.
Hey, they play it at Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, and you start like getting like, super patriotic.
Yeah, it's like it's I was talking to Sarah about this a while ago, where she was like humming it, and we were like, that song. Listening to the lyrics of that song is like the only thing in the world that makes me patriotic. It's like this weird. It just like presses a button in my brain where I'm like, oh my god, that's so tragic.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. I could keep going, but I won't.
Yeah, Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Well, that's where like you fist pump and like an F-16 like flies over. You shoot like your assault rifle, and then you ride the back of a bald eagle. That's glory, glory, hallelujah for you. Yeah, I like that. I like when it comes to like this message. Like I like the idea of it being hopeful. I like the idea that at the end, like, there isn't the super insane event. It's just two people finally figuring out that they are for each other. And that's it. That's pretty much what it is. We do have one more chapter left. So, B, what is the name of the last chapter of Percy Jackson? That is weird to say.
I know that it's super weird to say,
What is the last chapter of Percy Jackson, B?
Fittingly enough, chapter 23, the last chapter of The Last Olympian and of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, is We Say Goodbye, sort of.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Great, of course. That sounds about right for Rick Riordan, right? Because they do say goodbye, but it's only sort of, because there has to be some sort of weird little caveat.
B, do you think it's going to be that Percy Jackson wakes up and he's back in his apartment and Gabe's banging at his door?
Definitely not that, but I do think that there's going to be some sort of hint of other prophesizing going on of, that's the story never ends. I mean, I think this kind of story, especially, you have to remember, like, there's this cyclical nature of heroes and gods and monsters that their specific story might be ending. You could choose a cutoff point right here, he gets the girl, he defeats the villain, some lives are lost, but ultimately things turn out better, but it's never ending, even, who tells Percy this? I think it's, is it Hermes who tells him that Kronos isn't actually dead? Like,
yes.
There's just no actual finality in this kind of universe, right? There's this endless cycle of the death of gods, the death of monsters. They come back. They are remembered. That, like, the heroes are only like vessels for stories that will happen forever. And even if the heroes die, there'll be new heroes to take their place and to live out the same stories.
See, I feel like for me, when it comes to probably this last chapter, I haven't read it in years, so I don't know what it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I have a feeling it might be like the bookends of the first chapter in all of Percy Jackson, where it's like, hey, if you're a demigod, don't read this. Like, if you're not a demigod, don't read this book, where it's going to be, hey, if you're a demigod, come to camp. We'll be there for you. Like, we'll be waiting for you. I'll be there to give you a high five.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of hint of, there's many adventures on the horizon to look forward to. There really isn't any finality to this.
I have a feeling it's going to be the ending as, and then Percy and the gang got out on the stage and did a bow.
There's no bowing, though. That's the thing. They can't take a bow because they just have to keep living as demigods, which, I mean, is scary in and of itself. Like I said, they're just in constant pursuit of monsters.
Or it's going to be like Percy Jackson wrote the book, and it's going to be the ending is like, and then I lived the rest of my life. I lived to be the ripe old age of like 205 with my wife Annabeth and our kids and our great grandkids.
Right? No. That's how J.K. Rowling would write.
Well, no, that's okay. How J.K. Rowling wrote it was like 19 years later, and Harry's scar didn't hurt ever again.
You'd be like 19 years later. They have all of these kids, and everybody's in a straight relationship, and it's fine. And you were named after the bravest man I ever knew, Luke Jackson.
Oh no, that's terrible. Yeah, maybe it might be like that, but then it's like Harry's like, and then his scar didn't hurt ever again, except for that one time where his kid went back in time, and there was a stage play about it.
Yeah, but let's not talk about that. Yeah.
Oh man, I am so excited to see what happens next chapter B, because it's a very short one. I'm waiting for it, and it's just I just want to step back and say it's weird that we're about to finish the series after 2 years.
It's extremely weird. I have never read a book so slowly in my life, and I think it's been gratifying and interesting. I mean, or like a book series especially, like I normally, even if it's a series, finish it in, at least within a year, even if I'm like, leaving the book around and be like, oh, I'll get back to it later. Like I've never prolonged a reading experience this long in my life.
Well, we're about to finish it, and that's the weird thing.
It's so strange.
So, B, do you want to read some listener emails?
Sure do. So we got a few emails this week. The first one says, Dear Zack and B, just want to tell you guys something. Last time on We Win Fabulous Prizes, you mentioned that even immortals can fade away. I don't want to spoil anything, but later in another series, and Immortal states, I am on Wikipedia, I will live forever, and he brings up a good point. If the internet remembers the gods, will they stay?
I think I talked about this last episode.
No, yeah, we talked about this last episode. The thing is, though, I think that there's a different meaning of being remembered, right? Like, we talked about the death of Pan, and he's the only god so far that we've seen who's died just from being forgotten. And it's less like people don't know who Pan is, because I think you couldn't argue that even in the modern world. Like, he's probably one of the more known gods, but his spirit isn't believed in. So, like, his message isn't believed in. So I think it's less like, oh, people need to remember the actual name of the god, and it's more like they need to, like, actually dedicate themselves to what that god represents, or else they fade away. I think it's kind of both. Though it is interesting to think of a world of like the information age where like the literal names of gods can't be forgotten.
And also the funny thing about like Wikipedia is you could change things. So you could be like, Hades was the god of underwear. Like, what happens then? Like, what happens in that situation?
Of the underwear. You mean the underworld?
No, the underwear. Oh no.
Underwear? The world.
Because Hades does know Victoria's secrets.
So yeah, I think that's probably how it functions. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of the gist I got from the death of Pan. Because it was like less, that people forgot that he existed because the satyrs were looking for him.
Well, I think it's like one thing to like say a god's name, but it's another to believe in it. It's a lot like Tinkerbell. Like you have to believe in fairies or she dies.
Right, we're talking right now about these ancient gods. I am aware of the existence of Zeus. I don't believe that Zeus is up there in Mount Olympus. Do you know what I mean?
Zeus, if you are listening, we'd love to have you on the show. But you gotta play cool.
Right, exactly. Yeah, our biggest interview yet, Zeus. But yeah, so I think it's a different thing than being known and being believed in.
This is gonna happen, B. You're gonna be struck dead by a lightning bolt, and it's gonna be awkward.
If I get struck down by a lightning bolt, that would make really great podcasting. You know what I mean? Though then again, it might destroy my computer, and then my audio will be forever lost.
Oh, don't worry. I'll be able to talk about this for years to come.
Yeah. Be like, yeah, and then my co-host was vaporized.
Like my pre-algebra teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an email. This is from Lav. In The Last Olympian, Percy wants all the gods to have a cabin at camp. I believe there's over 30,000 Greek gods, so you couldn't possibly make cabins for everyone. There's a short story about that, by the way. Pretty sure the children of Artissus, god of beekeeping, cheese making, and honey, wouldn't have any powers and barely get any attention from monsters. Yay! Anyways, thanks for coming to my TED Talk, and I'm sorry for spamming you with emails. Hope it's okay. It's okay. I think maybe you found your new god there, B.
Wait a second. Okay, I changed my mind about being the child of Apollo. I'm the child of whatever god that is, because cheese and honey slap. That's great. Can I be that kid? I want to be that demigod. I don't want to have any powers. I want cheese powers. Bring me the cheese.
B, I'm just imagining the scene where you're fighting a monster in a grocery store and you pull out all the cheese puns, like, for good about it, and like a cheese flies and hits him in the face.
And I'm like, it pairs very well with the aged Gouda and also a lovely fig spread. And yeah, no, I would be, literally, my name is B. I love cheese. This is a destiny.
See, this is where like you pull out like your cheese sword. Oh, it's
yeah,
great.
It's a very, very sharp piece of pecorino romano.
Oh no. B, what's our next email?
So our next email is from Leo, who says, my buddy and I are writing a book together, and when it's done, would you like to read it too? Have you read the Red Queen series? I am listening to it right now. I'm on book 3, so no spoilers, please. If two half-bloods have a kid together, it's called a legacy. Just an interesting tidbit of info. Anyway, keep staying mortal and keep horsing around. P.S. Sorry if this is too long. P.P.S. Have you guys ever listened to Under the Influence from CBC Radio? If not, you should check it out all the way from PEI, Canada. Leo. So you're from where Anne of Green Gables hails over in PEI. I don't even know if we get CBC Radio in America.
Well, you probably get it over the internet.
Maybe
that's
online,
like the easy
possibly.
part.
But yeah, I have not listened to that because it's, the only thing from CBC I consume is Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, that's about correct. That's the same thing that I kind of like. Anything like Canadian that way, it's, actually take that back. Most things now are filmed in Canada, so I'm just watching Canadian television right now. Everything's filmed in Vancouver.
Everybody's watching Canadian television, whether they want to or not. I have not read that series that you mentioned.
I haven't read The Red Queen, no. I haven't even heard of it. Possibly I might check it
Again,
out.
don't read a ton of fantasy, believe it or not. So, probably if you name a fantasy book, I have not read it. Even a lot of the classic ones I haven't read.
To answer the question about reading your book, like currently right now, I don't have time to unfortunately read a book right now. I'd love to read it, but the weird thing about this quarantine is that I might be stuck at home, but all my clients are sending all their wonderful audio stuff, and I love you all because it pays me some bills. So if I have a chance to, I'll totally check it out.
Right, yeah. Honestly, I feel the same way, even though that I'm in my house all the time. I have a giant to-be-read pile that I haven't even gotten through because I'm bad at getting stuff done, I guess. I don't know. I only read when I do it for a podcast, I guess.
But thank you so much, and that's amazing that you're actually writing a book. You're actually taking that huge step. Like, I haven't written a book.
Yeah, can't say that I would do the same. That's that takes a lot of focus.
I've tried writing a couple books, and it's just, for me, my attention span works better for podcasting and short video making.
Yep, yeah, same. That's about as long as I can have attention for, is about an hour, maybe hour and a half.
So I have an email from William. Hi, Zack and B. I haven't listened in 2 weeks now, unfortunately, but I'm currently listening to We Win Fabulous Prizes, and I'm thrilled to tell you that it's my birthday, April 7th. Ooh, it's the 9th right now, but happy birthday. I just wanted to thank you for all the joy you've brought me and to all the other people as well who listen to y'all. So thanks a lot, best William. Happy birthday, William.
Yeah, thank you, and happy birthday. My friend Sarah has a birthday in a few days, so shout out to all the people who have quarantine birthdays, because that can't be fun. But I hope you're enjoying yourself. I hope you get to have fun treats and a little bit of a celebration, even if it's a little bit weird this year.
Yeah, this is where you pop in, like, I don't know, like you go on YouTube and look up birthday mixes or look up, like, ASMR birthday party sound effects. That's what I would do.
Just, like in the background, surprise! Okay, so we have another email from Helene, who says, Hi, Zack and B. In the last episode, you guys talked about what happens when you break a promise on the river Styx, and I remembered that Rick Riordan wrote in Percy Jackson and the Greek Heroes, he wrote that if you promise on the river Styx and break the promise, Hades and all of his demons will drag you into eternal punishment?
Yeah, the fields of eternal punishment.
Digging for eternal punishment? Okay. Oh, so digging? Wait, so are they trapped forever digging? I don't know if that counts for gods too, but I just wanted you to know. Sorry if my English is bad. I'm from Germany and only 14 years old. I love your podcast and I really enjoy your references, especially the Halloween Town ones. Thank you, Helene, for your appreciation.
I've never heard B sound so
great
excited.
Great wishes from Germany, Helene. So yeah, I think that's pretty plausible. I don't know if, what if Hades breaks the promise though? Because then he can't curse himself, right?
The way that I'm looking at it is like when a god makes a promise, they're pretty much now bound in the sense of like by ancient laws that are, so above us. Like if they were to break a law like that, like I think maybe Hades might have power over them in the sense of like he can do whatever he wants to them because, he has to follow the natural order. You broke a pinky promise, quite essentially. Now you pay the ultimate price with your blood.
I imagine that might happen, but it's hard to say. I would be interested in Rick Riordan actually writing that out. I don't want them to break the promise, but I'd like as a thought exercise, I wonder what would happen to the gods.
You just wanted to see what would happen. It's like fizzy lifting drink, isn't it?
The impulse. I don't want it to happen, but I want to know.
Well, you want to know, like, is Charlie and Grandpa going to be like smushed up by the blades? Why didn't Willy Wonka put a grate up there?
Oh God! Can you imagine like the alternate ending of Willy Wonka where they're just freaking made into mincemeat?
Well, here's the thing, though. This is like a supreme OSHA violation. Why isn't there a grate up there, just in case?
Everything in Willy Wonka is an OSHA violation. He literally kidnapped a bunch of like native people and had them become his slaves in his candy
and he
factory.
Pays them in chocolate?
Yeah, no, very problematic. It's not great.
Yeah, maybe. And he also has a chocolate river. Just imagine like the health inspector coming.
Oh yeah, just open chocolate river. Even in the movie, I think they say, they're like, oh, that can't be like, healthy. The health department should be on you.
Here's the question though, B. Have you seen a guardrail in Willy Wonka?
No, there's no guardrails. There's no nothing. They're eating wax teacups. It's hell or high water over there.
I'm just imagining like the person from like OSHA comes up. Mr. Wonka, says here you had a tour coming. I don't see an eye washing station. Don't see some guardrails. Says here you turned a girl's DNA into blueberry juice with untested chemicals.
Some bureaucrat with a clipboard.
It also says here that you have a car that is powered by soda. I'm going to have to give you a ticket for no guardrails. Everyone has to wash their hands, but everything else is okay. Checks out as Willie gives them some hard cash.
And did you get another one?
I did get one more, B, and it says, "Oh gods, this is great to hear. B, try to decipher any and everything about the series. For B, if they are interested, I would recommend Heroes of Olympus. Zach, if you haven't read it, you need to. I want your guys' opinion on Heroes of Olympus. That would be awesome.
You're in for a treat.
I would totally listen to this if they did Heroes of Olympus. If you swear on the river Styx and break it, you die and go to the fields of punishment, I think. I don't exactly know, B, for you guys' last episode, which probably already have planned out. I am requesting that you ask you about your opinions of each character. I want to hear B's full opinion on Rachel, Nico, Selena, Luke, and maybe Zoe. I know I'm asking a lot, but I am totally a part of the PJO fandom. Thanks for the awesome podcast. A damn teenager demigod, Piper."
I've definitely touched on what I thought of characters. Maybe as some sort of bonus episode, we might do something like that where we actually really delve deep into what we think about the characters. But you know my opinions. I've talked a lot about Annabeth. I've talked a lot about Rachel. Honestly, I talked a lot about Rachel this episode.
My answer about this is that we have something planned for the last episode because it's a very short one. Like it might be if we didn't have something planned, it would be a 10-minute episode at most. So we'll figure something out about that. But breaking down all the characters, that's something that we'll have to talk about for the last episode. But we'll probably do something similar to that, talking about what we liked, what we hated.
Right. Well, our general impressions of the book overall. And as far as Heroes of Olympus, again, we're putting up that poll basically by the time you hear this, and we probably will be reading Heroes of Olympus from what we've heard. Maybe it's been skewed as far as the emails we've gotten, but since we've started the podcast, especially in the past year, we've gotten a lot of emails from people saying we should read Heroes of Olympus first, right? I mean, as in second, right after this. So that's probably what's going to happen.
Here's the thing, though. We can do Heroes of Olympus, but this is also going to be a blessing and a curse if you guys really... you listen to our show, you know our opinions on things. It'll be interesting, I can tell you that. Because it's a very passionate book series, isn't it? Everyone wants us to read it, but do they? Do they really? My answer is maybe. And we'll get there. So thank you so much for that amazing, amazing email, Piper. Oh, that name sounds familiar to me.
We got a iTunes review that I'm pretty sure is from one of the same people who sent the email to us. Yeah, there it says I sent an email as well is the name of the review. So I'm very smart. I'm a regular Sherlock Holmes. And they said, this is honestly the best thing to listen to. B, try to decipher this. I've read PJO, Heroes of Olympus, and Trials of Apollo. This is awesome. To listen to them, keep going. 5 stars. Thank you.
It's the exact same person. It's Piper. I know who you are. We'll trace this email. But thank you so much for that amazing review. We've gotten some amazing reviews. It's crazy, like the influx of reviews and love we've gotten. Like, I guess we're helping through like this great time of boredom.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope you guys are, enjoying content and stuff that we make. I know that Passover is in the midst of happening right now. Easter's happening this weekend. It's a little weirder this year because of social distancing and stuff, but I hope that you're having like a nice, relaxing time and aren't freaking out too much.
I totally agree with you, B. So where can they find you on social media, B?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman. You can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com, and I just recorded an episode that I finally can talk about with one of my favorite book podcasts, SSR, which should be coming out this summer, which I'm very excited about, where we talked about Peter Pan, so keep an eye on social media for the link to that.
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphalfblood@gmail.com. I just came out with a new project. Me and my friends were in this Back to the Future 2 project called Back to the Future 2, TOOO.
Right, it's really great, you guys. You should check it out.
It was by Project 88, so just check that out. Just type in YouTube. My friends and I, we did a short scene where we all were a bunch of fans during this whole quarantine part, recreated every scene in Back to the Future 2. So check that out. Me and actually a couple other friends are in it too from the various Back to the Future communities because it's a really passionate thing. But this is turning into an infomercial. Just check it out. If you want to follow my other show of Gods and Monsters, the podcast where I talk about movies from a bygone era with my friend Caitlin, you can just look it up on all podcatchers. We talk about old horror movies. We're talking about the movie House of Wax. Well, we also have a Patreon.com/RadioCampHalfBlood. We also have t-shirts available at TeePublic. So check that out if you want our faces on them. Well, guys, I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And let's keep staying mortal. See ya!
Bye, guys.